When I was in Italy, I was very worried, to Lisbon and Italy, very worried about the future. Very worried about, okay, what I'm gonna do now? What's my next step here?
Buongiorno. Let's start in this way because we were just already laughing for 30 minutes. Also, yesterday I just put this aligner for. So I'm also, if I talk even weirder than normal, it's
Okay.
So, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks
Daniel
for inviting
from
me.
New York.
Yeah, almost.
No, Daniele Franco, gloriously originally from Italy, one of my closest friends, and also based in Lisbon. And so thanks for accepting this invitation actually. The only thing, and sorry, and I do apologize because it's a bit chilly, right?
It's freddo. It's quite freddo, no?
Because I think this air conditioning is too strong, right?
It's too strong, but it's good. It's a sign of progression in Europe. So finally we can have great air conditioning in Europe. So
I think as
I'm
a
proud
sign of, for making, emphasizing when there is air conditioning and AC in the room, in Europe they should put like 18 degrees. And then if there are people from, from San Francisco specifically coming, they need to be like, freezing. Why? Air conditioning, dude, check it out. So this is the mood. So we are here for, in any case, discussing about all these topics which are across Europe, US, and it's working. Okay, Europe, US, and so many choices that brought you here. Essentially, I just recorded another great podcast with a very interesting guy, and in that case, it was coming from North America in general, and. So in your case, Danny, I think the right initial question is, Italian, currently living in Lisbon, lived and did lots of experience in unicorn companies in Brazil, so South America, and you got your, current position is a position in one of very, interesting San Francisco headquartered, companies in tech. So why? I mean, couldn't we stay, happily in Piacenza, Roma, and so far and so on? Why?
Yeah. No, first of all, Ale, thanks so much. It's amazing to be here. I'm super happy and felice to be here with you, chatting about all these topics. Also because we discuss a lot about that in our dinners, which is kind of a very recurrent topic about how is today to live globally, right? So we are Italian. We love Italian food. You love Italian food. We eat a lot. Every time we go to an Italian restaurant, we kind of order all the menus, so we really enjoy. And I think it's symptomatic of the fact that we recognize our roots in Italy in terms of cultural belonging, if it makes sense. But yeah, we are, myself, for example, I've been living abroad for the last 10 years. I've been living, in Portugal 10 years ago. So I've been living in the Azores Islands in São Miguel. Then Lisbon, and then 7.5 years in Latin America between Argentina and Brazil. And then I came back to Lisbon for job opportunities. So living in Italy was not really like a urgency or to escape or whatsoever, but it was more like, let's see what's happening around the world. Let's see what's happening in Portugal. Things were happening naturally and progressively, let's say. So I'm not kind of the profile that we call in Italy, for example, fuga di cervelli, no? Although we can somehow fit in that topic, but I don't like to see myself at that because fuga, when you say brain escape, the word escape, it doesn't really resonate to me because I'm not escaping from anything. I just believe in a broader dimension of how we live today, right? So I can still be 100% Italian. You can see my accent, how we like food, what we eat every time we go to our friend here in Lisbon, our garage, but still live in a different dimension and experience different kind of culture and countries and see pros and cons of every culture or country. And this is how I believe you progress in life and you access to different experiences, right?
Daniele, the best risotto homemade in Lisbon. Alessandro, the best gricia homemade in Lisbon. No, definitely, I agree, and I think for Italians or Europeans listening to us, this concept of brain drain, of eventually people with high forms of education living abroad is a topic, but I think globally I don't think it's perceived like that, and indeed I fully agree. It's a matter of building and chasing maybe your own eventually future and your own also interests. rather than escaping from something. Also, I mean, can you tell us a bit more about, where are you from? From Italy, and
Sure.
what did you do at the university before going abroad? Actually,
Yeah, that's a nice story. I'm from Vicenza.
Vicenza.
Actually, even smaller town. It's called Trissino. It's really kind of 8,000 people, small Italian village, but nothing as you can imagine, like this small village in the hills or the mountain. No, it's connected in a ecosystem of services. So it's a region quite well developed, let's say, in Italy. But yeah, I'm originally from this part, the north, so Veneto, near Venice. It's between Verona and Venice. Great culture of spritz, aperitivo, aperol. No, you know how we enjoy our spritz time. And yeah, so I study human sciences in Bologna. So I study literature, philosophy, languages as well. So since the high school, I've been studying Spanish, English, French as languages. So I always invest a lot of time speaking different languages. And yeah, my background is totally in human sciences, but I always had this kind of feeling or will to know more about the digital ecosystem, but it was from I would say anthropological point of view. So I was always interested in understanding what's happening, why are we getting digital, what is happening with the tools, with the technology. Technology is evolving over time from the print to the radio, etc. And now we do have smartphone. What's happening? What's the need they are actually helping? What's the problem they are solving for our society, for our humans? So that's how I get to know more about, let's say, the digital ecosystem. And yeah, that's a little bit of my background, where I am from in Italy.
Amazing. So Italian, Spanish, French. I'm very surprised why you're not in France right now, but I think this can be in the next question. But before we get there with this politically incorrect, and I'm just kidding, of course, for all our French friends. So we're really kidding and about these topics, but because I have a lot. We all have friends maybe because usually so. The immediate initial thing when we met and then it surprised me is that, you did, maybe you can expand a bit more about your career, which are the startups you work on. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you associate tech with necessarily North America. And you were the guy specifically making me thinking a lot of Brazil, Argentina, but especially Brazil, in terms of booming market for tech. And sometimes these are an unknown elements because the mainstream narrative is, it's like air conditioning, it's no South America, no South America, no South America. And instead, some certain metrics, of course, which are not general, are amazing. So can you tell us a bit more about how did you end up working in tech for 7.5 years in South America?
Fantastic. So in South America, so in terms of company I've worked with, in Argentina I worked for 2 unicorns. One is Ethermax, so it's the company behind the hit game Trivia Crack. It was totally crazy in the US and all around the world. So it was really a social app game where you would challenge the other person on general knowledge. It's like a trivia, right? So it was fantastic experience because it's classic garage startup that grow globally. So we could see really the company kind of getting global through an app. So that was an amazing experience. The second company was Despegar, which is an online travel agency. 20 years in the market, is like, I guess, the 5th bigger online travel agency in the world.
Wow.
It's part of the Expedia group. So talking about 1,000 employee company, leader in Latin America. Essentially, they were the first to bring, travels digitally in Latin America, so to give people access to travel around the world through a platform, digital platform. So they were really democratizing in every aspect to traveling. Then I worked for Loft in Brazil. Loft, it's a real estate tech company. So I was there when we raised $400 million in Series D investment. Was the biggest at that time investment raised in Latin America, in the history of Latin America. So it was something fantastic. So great experience to see our team growing so fast and so many, hype and so much enthusiasm for that moment. And that was a little bit of, the experience I had in Latin America in terms of companies. In terms of talents, it's amazing what you mentioned. I found South America full of talent. It's incredible how many people, professional you have there that are just fantastic. If I can say, Argentina, people are super passionate and they are super great problem solvers. One of the reasons they recognize that because they say, guys, we're always in crisis. Our government doesn't help us. We always have inflation. Money is not real. It doesn't worth as much. So we always need to find a solution. We always need to think strategically to solve the problems. So you find guys that are genius. And if you see, most of the unicorn in Latin America, or a lot of unicorn in Latin America, are founded by Argentinian guys. So they're really smart, very quick, business driven. And one of the things that I enjoy the most, they are super close friends. Right? So they don't separate, like in North America, San Francisco, for example, on a professional level, you try always to keep it professional and separate from friendship, right? Which has pros and cons, of course. In Argentina, for me, it was the opposite. And as a young, let's say, a young man in the other part of the world, for me, it was essential because I had just not companions, but I had friends at work, right? So when you build friendship like this, of course, you have pros and cons, right? When you mix personal and professional. But I still remember some of the hackathon we did together, or some of the problem we solved together in a room just because of friendship. We stay there. We really want to solve it to prove also not just we were able to solve a problem, but that our friendship was able to solve that, what's at that level. So for me, it was a great learning. And some of my best friends today are co-worker, but I have colleagues from Argentinian experience. So that was fantastic, right? So that's incredible.
Before we move, because I have more of the kind of technical question, but what I'm super curious is, we were chatting about this the other day, and so especially for people, for people in Europe, automatically, if you talk of South America, Brazil, poor, China, underdeveloped, and so far and so on. So there are so many stereotypes. Then the very first time you take a flight and you go to China, for example, you realize, of course, in the major cities, but even if you go in the smaller ones, I've been in August also in a relatively smaller one, Suzhou, and you are impressed. It's incredible. It's beyond incredible, and they let us fully convinced of a different reality. And that's where my question comes from, which is, Italy, human science, then we will get there how you ended up in tech and in product. Why Argentina?
Argentina actually was just part of a program, a master program. So
I see.
I had to spend 4 months to write a part of my final essay, let's say.
Wow.
Which was, the final essay was very interesting, in my opinion, was the comparison between social media, so Facebook in that case, and the literary autofiction. So it's a gender, right? So I was there working with some amazing professor in Argentina, Buenos Aires, discovering about this topic, how to compare literature to social media. It was quite different approach, but for me it was super interesting because, again, my drive was to understand why are we using this, what's happening, that we need some extra tools today, what are these tools, what are they enabling for people. So that was a little bit of the angle of my discovery. But once I was there, as you mentioned, the first day I arrived to Buenos Aires, I still remember the air. It was super hot. It was March. It was the 4th of March. And I guess I was in Italy, and it was super cold in Veneto, fog. Arrived to Ezeiza, Buenos Aires, this hot weather, warm. And I grabbed a cab, and the driver was so funny, so welcoming, so hands-on. And I was like, oh my God, I will never leave the city. So Buenos Aires has something. You feel it. I felt in love with Buenos Aires in the beginning, right? It's a city that it's super attractive. People are just, the city is beautiful. First of all, the city is very beautiful. It's one of the most elegant city I have ever seen. It's one of the most vibrant city I have ever seen. If you walk down Palermo is a neighborhood full of restaurants, what they call boliche, like, disco bars, etc. I mean, it's super high quality, amazing cocktail, amazing people, expat community. So it's fantastic. It's just fantastic, right? So I said, my God, this is a perfect city. I don't want to leave, 4 months.
Wow.
4 months it's a short time for me to really get everything that I need to get from this place. I want to live here. I want to understand more about this place. So after, let's say, 1 week, I met who today is my wife, so Claudia. So we met at Buenos Aires. She's Brazilian. She was there for work. She was an expat. And in a party we met and we started getting out, etc. So that's how our story began. But so my drive was to stay in Buenos Aires because I love the people, I love the city. And then an opportunity came to work in this company, Edermax, and to help launch the product in Italy, right? So the Trivia Crack product for Italy. So they need someone who understands Italian market, who had general knowledge to be able to curate the content of the app. So it was like a different, it wasn't just a translator, but they need a profile who understand humanities as a whole, but also the market, the culture, and able to localize the product, right? So it was a product localization work and go to market. And for me, it was the entry door to technology, because from there, once you join a company like this, super vibrant, from day one, you start learning about everything. Scrum, Agile, user experience, UX, something that before I didn't even, know that well, design thinking. So you start really getting, learn everything. So this is how I start my career. And the trigger, I would say, is the will to say, hey, here there's something going on. And when you ask between Italy and Argentina, so from day one, when I was in Italy, I was very worried. In Italy, actually, I was between Lisbon and Italy, very worried about the future. Very worried about, okay, what I'm going to do now? What's my next step here? I had this degree in human sciences mixed with digital, but, I am not the SEO guy or the marketing. I'm an hybrid profile. What can I do here? So, and I didn't know about any of this industry, or not that much. And then I arrived in Argentina, and to be honest, I feel like the future is here for me. It's something's going on. There's the momentum, there's the energy, people are there. I didn't know what it was, but it was like an essence. Someone calling you, something calling you. Then of course, when you have partner like this, so Claudia was since day one. She was actually the one helping me getting this job, making the intro to another guy working in this company. So she was the key factor.
Wow.
So I had a lot of things going on, from a person, love for a city, feeling of opportunities are here, something is happening here. So I like to say that it's like it was like a fresh start for me, a different Dani, I would say, from what I was before Argentina. From Argentina, it starts something new, start my career, the life that I have today. It started that day. You know what I mean? It started in Argentina. So I would say that's a little bit of...
Amazing. So I have so many questions, but I wanted to before I would like to give bird eye view on your movements and the geography first. But I'm so interested because now that you make me think of it, it's not a coincidence that also Brandon, I was interviewing before, the next friends or people we will have on this podcast. A recurring element is we all are international families, right? We all are, there is an Italian with a Brazilian, Italian Chinese, American Indian with a Dutch lady, blah, 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 blah. So it's so interesting and so different from maybe what was common 30 or 40 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So it's incredible. It's a trend. And maybe we are the early, in this sense, maybe we are the ones coming early, on a different perspective, also culturally, and we start feeling and different things compared to the traditional ones, and that's why maybe we develop unique perspectives on certain matters. And for me, the Argentinian point, from European, it's interesting because if you didn't live such an experience, you don't understand it. Mm-hmm. So it's like for me when I went in India. Again, from a certain brainwashed mindset, mm-hmm. India. They are still in the Middle Ages. Totally wrong. totally wrong. This is absolutely, and then you, of course, you meet Indians. You have a lot of Indian friends who are, in the end, there are many countries in the world where the mindset is so similar, and you love it, and you understand, well, there is an energy here. This energy is special, and then that's where you make comparisons. Then we will come to Europe versus the rest of the world, pros and cons. But my technical question was product. How do you think that working in, so first of all, can you describe how your career evolved very quickly, so you can give an idea of, okay, I've been doing this in this company, and then I run this team of this size, shipping ABC, and then how product changed in the last 5-10 years?
Yeah, sure, 100%. So I started working this company, especially with Italian market, this product trivia crack, but then very quick in this company I start growing and taking accountability for other games and other kind of app that we were launching. So from a storytelling content perspective, so it was always trying to understand what's the best product, what's the best story around this product, about this game, how can we launch it, etc. And then I start, this word, it was when, for example, in Argentina, UX word or user experience was growing a lot. So we were actually, let's say, moving from design, graphic design, which the industry understands as design something visual, right? So just design something, to understand the clients, understand the customer, and based on that, build something. So the reverse approach, right? So design thinking approach methodology, right? So there was a huge hype when I was in Argentina at that time about understanding how to use design thinking for building product, how to build something that an experience that resonate with the client. So skills like understanding, discovery, being able to read the human were super important at that stage, right? More than just the visual part. So I started getting into user experience and UX very, very quick. And when I moved to Despegar or Decolar, which is the online travel agency, I leading a team with designer, content, and researchers. So a team in charge of designing the experience for our providers, right? Suppliers, so hotels, tourist guides, etc., etc. So yeah, it was an amazing experience in how to build product for this kind of market. So we were building platform for people running hotels that need to put some picture, right? For example, the rooms, availability, etc. So something that need to be super easy to understand all over Latin America. So different languages, different from Colombia to Peru to Brazil to Argentina, etc. So a product that was able to scale and to meet the needs for all these kind of different persona that we had, right? So that was a little bit of my experience in Despegar. Actually, I have run also different other initiatives, and one of my last period in Despegar is the reason why I moved from Argentina to Brazil. Despegar has this headquarters in Buenos Aires, but also a huge office in Brazil. All the product was made in Argentina, right? So we were suffering of what we call back in time of Argentinocentrismo. We were producing a product for all Latin America from Argentina. Argentina is a country with strong cultural traits, let's say, so different from Colombia. So Latin America is not just one country, as you mentioned. It has so many different. So of course the product was not prepared for Brazil, if it makes sense. It was just translated from Brazil from a language perspective, but not 100% localized for the Brazilian market, which was 50% of our market. So it was a very important market. So I being moved, expatriated to Brazil, to Sao Paulo, to build the user experience team in Brazil, to localize the product for Brazil, right? Or to better localize it, let's say. So to make it even more, let's say, even more Brazil-driven and not just Argentinian-driven. So in the end, it was a cultural change, what we were kind of chasing with this move. So for me, it has been an amazing experience because suddenly I was in another country, Italian, but it was a good fit because Italian, married to a Brazilian wife, so was not either not Argentine, not Brazilian, so was able to see and live at different cultures from a different perspective, right? So was able to kind of help the team and the people understand the cultural traits, and that was my angle. I think it was a very specific angles. And so, yeah, it was an amazing experience in the Colar, and I love São Paulo, and we can talk more about Brazil. I think Brazil is another amazing chapter, you know.
Go for it. At this point, go for Brazil.
So, Brazil.
Because I've been there as you know, South America is in general the area of the world that I know less. But I've been there just once when I was younger.
Where have you been?
São Paulo. São Paulo, and then we flew from there to Punta del Este, Uruguay, which is, I think we should definitely go there as well. It's incredible.
Fantastic. I mean, São Paulo, so my wife is from São Paulo, so I knew São Paulo from before, from some trip, etc. São Paulo, for me, I don't know, it's, I would say, the best city in the world, but because I'm biased, okay, I do have some strong emotional connection to São Paulo. First of all, São Paulo is not a beautiful city from my perspective. Buenos Aires is beautiful. Buenos Aires, you go tourism, you know, you have a lot of tours, museum, etc. São Paulo is business. If you want to enjoy São Paulo, you live in São Paulo, in my opinion, right? If you live in São Paulo, you get access to the level of services that São Paulo has, which is 5 stars. I mean, it's fantastic, best services. People are amazing, and you feel in São Paulo what you mentioned once in India. Every person is there to do their life, to grow. So you feel it in every profession, from the guy, you know, the hair, I mean, from the guy helping in some more operational stuff to the guy running a company. They're all in the same mentality, let's say, with different, of course, tools and accesses. But they're there to make it happen. They're there to, you know, to progress in their life. So you breathe that. And in my opinion, if I felt this in Buenos Aires, I felt this idea of future, everything could happen. In São Paulo, it's like everything will happen. That's a little bit of the difference. It's even more pragmatic and even more door opener to your future. So for me, it was life-changing in terms of also professional, let's say, career and what I achieved in São Paulo. It was one of the best places to be. So
that's super interesting, because occasionally, you know, online at least there are people maybe traveling to São Paulo and not really enjoying the experience. But I think you address this because you are saying something like, well, you need to know São Paulo, you know it only when you live there, right? And that's a very interesting take. But I had also another friend visiting actually is a life partner in São Paulo, and also he had amazing experiences. From my side, I can just comment this, but this is just, you know, the difference of, because Portuguese, European Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese, as we know very well, is different, and then we can see the difference between and this would be the same with Italian, of course. It's the Portuguese version is more bom dia, and then the Brazilian version is more bom dia, and there is this incredible energy. And again, this is another topic which, from an Italian, French, German perspective, unfortunately, we tend to associate, you know, okay, Brazil equal to poverty, and then different types of issues. Recently, there was all the major, you know, controversy regarding the ban of X/Twitter from Alexandre Moraes, I guess, the Minister of Justice. And therefore, there is a lot of, you know, this kind of conceptions. But that's why your story is interesting, because instead you work there not for one, not for two, but for 3 high-growth companies, including the startup which received the largest funding round in South America, 400 million. And that was, in my view, super interesting as angle, because if it was in San Francisco, okay, or at least SF-based, okay, yeah, amazing job, but you know, this is interesting. And out of curiosity, so Argentina, Brazil, why Portugal? Why you decided to move here? And also in your case, your wife is, you know, Brazilian, Claudia, and I mean, you are Italian. Either, you know, why not Italy? Why not Brazil, but instead Portugal?
Yeah, amazing question. Amazing question. I think it relates a lot to the fact that we are global citizens. We like to use that word. Global citizens are people who are actually, you know, you don't just pick a place for live the whole life. It's an horizon of time which is too broad. We say, okay, what's the next adventure? What are the next 2, 3 to 5 years? You know, we can't think more than 5 years, for example, right? So in this,
it's like with startups.
Yeah, exactly. It's with startup. Exactly. You know, you have a first year product market fit. You know, and then you start growing. But essentially, you know, after 7 years and a half in Latin America, we talk about cycles, right? We were, you know, super happy, etc. But we said, okay, maybe it's time to try something new, right? So to get closer to Europe and to see also the other side of corner. I mean, I was living in Latin America, but I would also love to have my wife living closer to Europe, to have this kind of, you know, different experiences and have both sides of the coin. So we wanted to go to Berlin. Berlin was like an option because of a startup ecosystem, because of a technology market. So we were talking to some good companies. So everything was really set to go to Berlin, let's say. And then it was super funny because we were in the same week we received 2 offers. Clau, my wife, she had an offer for a Berlin company, Berlin-based company, but she could work remotely from everywhere. And in my case, I also received an offer from a Portuguese company. I could live in Berlin, but they say, hey, if you move to Lisbon, we are able to give you some, better contracts, some more benefits, right? So it's better for you if you move to Lisbon, but if you want to go to Berlin, go to Berlin. So we have 2 offers on the table. We have Berlin, which was our first choice, and we could go there with our works. But then, it was crazy because when I received this offer, we have like a map in the table so you can see the word, right? And it was super clear visually: Brazil, Europe, Portugal, and Berlin. And Lisbon was never on the table, but suddenly it was on the map for the first time. I said, okay, but what if? So we started looking Lisbon, and Lisbon was it's the first city that you meet from Brazil, because you just have the Atlantic Ocean that separates you, direct fly. It's super close to Italy, so it's 3 hours. So it was like, okay, it's the perfect bridge. So we start thinking about it and say, hey, language, it's Portuguese, so we don't have this kind of barrier in the beginning. Weather is good, so we don't have this shock of the weather in the beginning. We were building the house in Fortaleza, right? It's a side project that we have. We run like this business for digital nomads as well. So it's a beach house in Fortaleza in the north of Brazil, Fortaleza is the closest city to Lisbon. So it was like, okay, there's something here. There's a match. Life is giving you.
Let's do this like if this was a famous YouTube podcast, like and you will find the link of the
book now.
Is there air conditioning?
Yes, there is air conditioning. Yeah, of course.
Incredible.
Of course. Yeah,
I thought you didn't know even that existed, this air conditioning. How is it possible?
There's air conditioning.
I was so traumatized. I went on the Italian dictionary searching for aria condizionata. Is there this term? Because maybe it doesn't exist. Right? Just kidding.
So, yes, I mean, so we say, okay, let's go to Lisbon. So we say, okay, maybe it's the best compromise. It's what it's working for us. So yeah, we moved to Lisbon and super happy, to be honest. It was the best choice ever. We are super happy. We love Lisbon. We are based here. Again, we can't see ourselves like in 20 years, but in the horizontal time, which works for us, which is 5, 6, 7 years, 5 years, I would say, it's a perfect horizontal time, and we are super happy here. So yeah, that's how we got to know Lisbon.
And this is incredible because you're mentioning some topics that, for example, is the first time I think we also chat about it, which is this concept of cycles and global citizens. Now, and you are even saying, so wife, now we can say you are going to, expand your family with new members. And still you are thinking, okay, in this cycle, in this phase, it's perfect to be here. We love it, but still in the future, I consider myself in this or that country. So, if you think for a moment, because for us it's obvious, right? So in my case, my fiance, she's Chinese, so we by default we are exposed to different cultures, and it's easy for us to in 3 years I can be there. But I think for 90% of the normal population, this is crazy. Like no. Once you are settled in one place. So the question is, in your view, is this a trend, or are we the exception essentially to the rule?
I think it's a trend. I think it's becoming a trend. Why? Because we do have now tools or technology or frameworks that helped this, right? So 20 years ago, maybe it was much harder, to be a global citizen, because you have less knowledge, less information, less people with this experience. It was difficult to find information about how it is to live in another country. Languages were always a barrier. And I think now we live in this globalized world where you have if you speak basic English, you can get access to everywhere. So language is not a problem today, right? And actually, the more you expose yourself to different languages, you see it doesn't matter how you speak, how perfectly you speak, but the fact that you can communicate. So there's a huge difference between be super proficient, but being able to have a conversation. And I think this is one of the barriers that people needs to break them once they enter in another language, right? So language is not a barrier anymore. You do have a lot of information frameworks in how it's treated in another country, but especially, and this is back to what we mentioned in the beginning, sometimes you want to discover more, to live better. Doesn't mean that you are not living good where you are, but you will always find some ingredients when you want to add in your recipe, right? For me to go to Argentina, did I become rich in Argentina? No, because the money, of course, is not so worthy, the pesos, etc. So if you want to build, if you want to do your exit and whatsoever, maybe it's not the best ecosystem if you're a young entrepreneur. But on the other side, what I learned from Argentina, all the skills that Argentina gave me, adaptability, friendship as a tool. As a tool, as we mentioned in the beginning, friendship as a tool for connection, for problem solving. So use your friendship to get things done. I think, for example, me and you, we are also, it's an Argentina framework of friendship. With our friendship, we are accomplishing a lot of things together. So it is something that, if you work just for a American company, maybe if you end a project with a person, it is like that. Of course, we cannot generalize, but it's harder to get in touch with professional in different contexts. In Argentina, you are all in the same network and always cheering for the other. And whenever there's a possibility, you do something with this person,
And this is my view. Maybe we can expand this later, but it's a major difference also of why sometimes pure efficiency or scaling in especially in high performance oriented ecosystems. If you read any book from the art things of Ben Horowitz and everything in the middle with it's very easy in American approach to thank you for the contribution, in 2 weeks you're out, versus Argentinian, South America, South of Europe.
Exactly.
It's a personal thing versus it's just eventually it's a different framework. To be frank, I do believe that in most of the cases the American framework is the right way and the most efficient, as long as we understand that it works because the ecosystem works. So you will immediately find and continue your growth and progress in your career. And so there is a machine that works, and in that system, which is in my view top notch, culturally that works.
100%.
The good question would be why instead Argentina, Brazil, Italy, Spain, Greece, but also North of Europe, it's a different thing, to do a career transition and so far and so on, because eventually there is a fear, as you were mentioning before, right? There is the fear of the future versus the optimism and the possibility and believing in the future and believing in yourself. So these are the cultural, I think, right?
100%. And from my perspective, what I bring at work, for example, is not either one or the other approach.
Yeah, of course.
But it's like, if you learn on the way, you have your ingredient. It's like a recipe. Sometimes you need the salt, sometimes you need the sugar. But if you have both, you can choose when to use the sugar and when to use the salt, right? So in some contexts, you need to be super pragmatic. You need to be, hey guys, thank you for your collaboration. It's fine, etc. In some other contexts, you might need some, more friendship approach where you can build something. So you can, if the more tools you have from your experience and the more culture background, the more, things you have in your more tools you have to actually use in practical scenarios. So that's why I think it's important to have different approach and cultures, because when you are exposed to diversity, you're a richer person, a better professional. You can lead. Imagine if you have just one angle, you will lead with a problem with one angle. If you have different 3, 5, 10 angles to the same problem, you have 10 angles, and then you can choose what's the best approach to solve this problem, right? So, sometimes you need to be assertive, sometimes you need to be mediator, sometimes you need to be, but a little bit of a, maybe a little bit hard, but you can choose, you can pick and adapt yourself. So that's, for me, to be a global citizen, it means you constantly need to adapt yourself. You're always open, so you don't ever consider something with just a closed mind, as you mentioned, India or Brazil. No, you go and you see and you experience. And if you see, in the end, it's a richer life, because you don't close door for yourself, for your perspective. You open, you enjoy, no?
In this broader picture, somehow we are painting, I think we need to include now the San Francisco American component, because as a coincidence, by the way, you also got exposed, to that ecosystem. And I think there is a beautiful story to tell about your latest, essentially, professional journey. And I'm super curious to if you can share your impressions about. You told me about Cupertino and this cool stuff. So
sure. So this year I've been working for a San Francisco-based IT consultancy. So it's a big company which provides consultancy for top companies like Apple, eBay, Fanatics, Twitter, etc., or X, etc., and be running the product and design department, a business unit of the company. So I've been traveling to New York, San Francisco, Toronto. So it was a great way for me to be directly exposed to this ecosystem as well. And I've been working with American before as well at Rich Desk, the Portuguese company. Actually, they were New York based, but building the hub in Portugal. So all the executive level was in New York. So we were directly working with New York people. So what I really enjoy about North American approach, the pragmatism, as you mentioned, it's very nice. Sometimes in Argentina and Brazil, talking about the cons, is that you can get a little bit too friends in the call. So you sometimes say, hey, we have half an hour, let's do it, let's make it a little bit more pragmatic. So it's very nice. But also the enthusiasm. It's something that I really, normally you would think that enthusiasm is something more of a South American, etc., which it's true, but also North American people are always very enthusiastic, willing to kind of make it happen, good mood. So it's good. It's a good way, so to work, I think.
Amazing.
Right? Do you feel the same?
Mamma mia, absolutely. Mamma mia. Yeah, that's it. Every time, seriously, every time I go, because there is a lot of online, California is bad, San Francisco, the energy. Every time you connect. And it's honestly, it's amazing. I love every time I spend time there, I come back more energized and also I have a lot of American friends, and this leads me to the next question. So South America, specifically Brazil, Argentina, Italy, of course, and Portugal, North America. So the differences, and it's interesting because you work in unicorn companies, high growth companies in Brazil. Exposure to probably some of the most essentially successful companies of that capitalism in general has produced in the Western civilization, in the North America and the USA, in terms of providing maybe working on very cool projects with tier one companies that you mentioned. What about Europe? To be fair, and because I do believe that constructive criticism is good as long as it is followed up of thorough action, and I think we should reflect on these points in an open-minded way.
Sure. So what about Europe? I think Europe, how can I say, has a good ecosystem as well in general of startup growing and creating businesses, etc. Portugal, for example, itself, advantage about Portugal is that you have very talented people who speaks great English, so in time zone which is close to American. So
precisely as Italy.
Yeah, yeah, almost. And talking about Italy, which is interesting. So I've been to the Tech Week in Turin 2 months ago, and we have some, executive dinner there, etc. What's my take about Italy? So it has a lot of potential because it's a 60 million market, but there are some limitations and recognized by the Italian ecosystem as well. So today there are the money, there are VC willing to invest, and what we call, that's for my wife, but old money investing in new money. Old money is the money from the industry, etc. They want to invest in new money, new technology, right? So venture capital ready to invest. But what happened? You do have the talents, right? But Italy, it's traditionally a more traditional country. So also the talent, the schools, the programs, people are not 100% prepared for tech jobs, although they are evolving quite fast. But one of the problems is the mindset or the language barrier as well. So it's a very local market. So if you want to invest in Italy as a venture capital as well, you say, okay, I need to understand that I do have in the beginning, I can have a cap. Italian market, it's where how much I can grow. If I need to scale, this is where you need talents that are able to connect with the Italian ecosystem, but also to the rest of the world, right? So it's not an ecosystem prepared to scale globally yet. It's a very local ecosystem, which can be, you can make good money, great product, etc. But that's a little bit of a limitation, in my opinion, compared to other like Portugal. You scale globally. Portugal is prepared to set up a startup today and scale globally. If you go to Italy, you scale, first of all, pro market fit and your scale, it's Italy, Italian market size. And if you need to grow more and more, you need to put some extra effort in your talents, in my opinion. So that's a little bit of the cons that I can see. The pros, you really need technology in Italy. So Milan is growing a lot. Fintechs in Milan are booming because you need new services. Because it's a traditional market, this is where you can innovate, right? So there's a lot of blue ocean space there, but you need to be to understand a little bit of this scenario, in my opinion.
So essentially, you go on Crunchbase, you check the Series B, C rounds at that level of startups with pro market fit working in the US, and then you go searching for a seed and starting in Italy, and then you sell, which is, I think, Rocket Internet what made Rocket Internet big, I guess, and then it's a game plan as many. Could be.
Yeah. Well, I know that I don't remember, but in Germany they were doing the same. They were copying. There were two brothers copying.
Rocket Internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing. And by the way, in my view, it could be a great game plan. My only more, I would say, consideration, which is more on the sad side, is it would be great if that model and that game plan would be existing along with many other, more direct organic value creation models. Instead, maybe we are still there. But I think talking about these things from an objective and fair perspective, I think it adds value. And
if I can add what I can see, we have a lot of Italians, key players working globally in great companies. Yeah. So you do have Italian, which are amazing talents doing amazing stuff around the globe. But when you comes to the Italian ecosystem, sometimes feel like it's a little bit, you need to stretch a little bit. It needs time to mature, let's say, no?
Yeah, but it's not a coincidence. Like even Candy Crush Saga exit with King.com, Riccardo Zacconi, the whole story of them, I wrote an article there on that story. It was London-centric. So still, Italian, especially maybe 20, 15 years ago, London was probably the closest and smaller version of the American dream for Europeans, right? So it was a London story, I would say. The co-founders were not. I'm not sure. I don't think they were all Italians, and likewise. I mean, this is a fair take. And instead, in Portugal, things are different. You think, right? Also,
I think are different. Because one reason is because the government has invested a lot in the past year to create the ecosystem to attract talents. So you do have a Visa, you do have VCs, you do have, for example, Unicorn Factory in Lisbon. It's a great incubator. So there's a huge amount of people working to make this happen, and this is part of a plan. So it's not just because Portugal is you have great grilled fish and sun and that you attract talent. No, it's because you prepare something to attract talent, to attract capitals, right? The golden visa as well. It's not 100% related to tech. I mean, there's something about tech as well, but when it was about real estate, etc., it to attract investment, to attract people from abroad, let's say. Again, pros and cons. But from my perspective, you create an ecosystem which today it's ready to scale, because in town in Lisbon,
it's true.
You have everything you need to create a company that can scale globally.
That's a great note, actually. That probably you're making me thinking of it now, right? Because even if Lisbon is a relatively small city, right? It's up to 500,000 city. So compared to larger ones, it's relatively small. It attracted in the last 10 years a lot of people like us. So if you need, I want to build an engineering team, a product team, marketing team, of course, you can find resources that maybe until yesterday or last month they were working with the American company, the other company from other. So it can be. Actually, it's a good angle.
100%.
And I heard also another good acquaintance of mine. They are large startup, very very beyond unicorn, already level evaluation, and they opened two offices in Europe for balancing and essentially containing the costs, the operational cost, and they have 55, 60 people in Lisbon.
Yeah, so I think to be honest, you have, for example, people. I mean, you have Portuguese people, great tech schools, so we invest a lot in education, which is super important because, if you're a young person and if you go to a problem management course and the course is good level and you have a great community of people, so there are a lot of community meetups happening. I mean, eventually you grow in your knowledge and your skills. You speak English, so 100% you are 25 years old and you're already prepared to the market. You can either work here or either work for an American company. If you do the same comparison to Italy, it can be slower. 25, you're still in your master and you need to understand what you want to do, and then the course is not that pragmatic and the English is not that good. So there are a lot of blocker, and the ecosystem where you are is not Lisbon, so it's slower. So it's a little bit different, I feel. And also another part about Portugal, you do have this kind of contest scenario, but also you have a lot of people coming from abroad. So you have a perfect mix from digital nomads, tech worker, local tech worker, etc. And in the end, you enrich. So in every team, in every company I've worked with in Portugal, team were not just Portuguese people, but you have people from all around the world. So it enrich, the kind of the value.
100%. And another point that sometimes I write on X about is, if you, like you in this case, she spent 6 months in Italy and she didn't make one friend. Why? Because nobody essentially for real would talk to her in English, because objectively it's a barrier, or it was at least 5-6 years ago. And inevitably this counts, because if you want to live in Germany, at the end of the day, even in Berlin you can for sure speak English, but even Paris, of course, Madrid, Rome, Milan. Well, Milan maybe, but still you need to learn the local language, and at the same time, of course, there is the kind of Dubai approach instead, where everybody is living in this kind of international environment without necessarily a sedimented local culture that is at least open to you. Instead, Portugal has both of them, because there is a objectively amazing culture and then language, which is very beautiful, and the fado, the canto fado, and so far and so on, literature, food, architecture. It's here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is an openness. So and then you can live in Lisbon or even in Porto, for sure in Algarve, without knowing one word of Portuguese, right?
100%. And as you mentioned, there's an openness. So, people welcome you. And I think that's great, because you feel from the first day one, you feel like, I want to know more. People are kind to me, etc. And something important to mention, Lisbon today is not Lisbon 10 years ago.
Good point, yeah.
So 10 years ago, I was here for my Erasmus, which is like a student exchange. And Ali was a different city. It was a more bohemia, more, we use the word nostalgic, You know, fado, but nostalgia, a little bit older. And now you walk downtown Lisbon and it's super vibrant, so many fresh shops, different concepts. So now it's a global city. Now Lisbon, it's a global city for global citizens. You can find any kind of services, and the level of services is growing a lot. Also, from my perspective, a lot of Brazilians are coming to Portugal as well. So Brazilian people, especially when it comes to, you know, bar, restaurant, and service, people services kind of, they're fantastic. They're amazing. So they're leveling up the services.
It's true, and it's interesting because it's an angle I didn't consider until now, which is indeed somehow, I mean, it's an example of European city that in 10, 15 years really made a change. Because sometimes, okay, Dubai 40 years ago was here, now it's here. Singapore, here, there. This is the typical, you know, stuff that I also write sometimes about. In this case, it's a European example that essentially experienced exponential growth. And of course, this creates also controversies. This creates, you know, criticism of various kind. But we can. I address them also in various ways today. I mean, I think it would be interesting to focus. And then, Dani, thank you so much for being here in this edition number 2 of the physical podcast that we will still need to find. We will call it air conditioning
Fantastic.
Air podcast. In my view, you know, one interesting question I started asking is, because, you know, these kind of life experiences merged with professional experiences and, of course, challenges, ups, downs, they can't be really replicated, especially because if you replicate now the same actually, you know, journey that you did 10 years ago, you won't have the same experience because Lisbon 10 years ago was different compared to what is today. So with that in mind, let's say that you're talking to somebody in the early 20s and maybe considering to work in tech, but not necessarily, can be more a technical role, a more non-technical role in terms of coding, or somebody even in a traditional industry. Which advices would you share with them?
It's a great question, by the way. I would share one of the first advice, in my opinion, would be language can never be a barrier. So I remember one of the CPO at Despegar said, you know, language can never be a barrier for business. We were talking about, we had some problem about Argentina and Brazil to communicate in that time. He said, guys, language can never be a problem for business. But I would say language can never be a problem for life, if it makes sense. So invest in language, and in languages, as many languages as you can. English, of course, is important, but if you are exposed to other language, it's always great because you have, you know, you unlock doors in the world, which essentially allows you to experience different things. And, you know, willing to risk, because this kind of life, when you jump from a country to another, you don't know what you're going to find there. So you need to be a little bit of an entrepreneur yourself, even if you have your stable job. To be an entrepreneur is not just to find a company, but is to build your life. You know, what we are doing here, when we're talking about this, we are constantly rebuilding, or I wouldn't say rebuilding, but reshaping our life. So we are taking risk because, of course, for me to get out of Veneto, one of the best region to live, let's say, no?
Of course.
And to go to Argentina, it was 100% to be exposed to risk, but, you know, the higher the risk, the higher the return you can have and the gain. So I would say expose yourself to risk, and that's fine. And also open minds in terms of don't eliminate countries or possibility on your map because you say with your present conviction, because your present conviction can change tomorrow. So if you have an open approach, even if yourself and say, hey, this is not good for me, or we're talking about country or work whatsoever, give it a trial. Give it a try and make yourself prove wrong. You know, it's fine to change opinion about something, but if you have an open mind to things, I think it's gonna unlock all the doors of the world, and eventually life will happen. Everything that I told today to you, I didn't plan it, never. You know, I just say, okay, let's go there, let's take a shot, and let's see what happens. And life has happened. Of course, you take decision, etc. I think when you're open to the world, things just happen, and you feel in this kind of flow where you don't just belong to one place, you belong to the world, and in the world you find your place, you know? So it's a little bit philosophical, I understand, but it's how I like to see things, you know? When you if you ask me what's your future, are you going to stay in Portugal? I don't know. We'll see. You know, I have my time frame. In 3 years, I'm going to have a little baby, as you know. But again, I'm not saying, okay, this is it. You know, we traveled when we were young. We did our experiences, working, etc. And this is no. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of living, which I think it's not just for an age, but it's for the life itself, right? So that would be a little bit of the approach, I would say.
No, that's amazing. I think we should have another session in the near future, because I think this story of families, international families living internationally is very interesting. But for today, I would say, you know, to recap, you know, from Veneto, which is famous for the spritz, which for those ones of you still drinking a bit of alcohol, give it a try. And by the way, if you go in Veneto, for people from Veneto, spritz is non-alcoholic, right? It doesn't qualify for.
It doesn't qualify. It's like, you know, spritz. It doesn't count as alcohol. It's just water. It's a water.
It's a basic word. So I was trying to say for today, Danny, I think, you know, spritz from Veneto, and then mate that you actually taught me about from Argentina, to cafe in Portugal.
Cafe.
So I would say for today, we are going for a spritz, right?
Fantastic.
So
Let's do it.
It's time.
Let's do it.
I don't know. It's jokes aside. Thank you so much for you know, spending this time with me and with us. I hope this is going to be the first one of a few chats, and maybe we will try to invite 2-3 people, and then having you know, interesting, you know, interactions. And
fantastic.
So.
Vale, thanks so much. It was great to share a little bit of my story. I think, you know, it was one of the first time that you can see everything on a big picture. So great question. Love that time. So thank you. It was great.
Thank you to you. And as always, I say, you know, this is also the opportunity for having some honest chats about, you know, and then reframing the whole story. It brings clarity to the one telling the story, clarity to me, and otherwise we don't have the actions. And thanks so much, because actually this was the guy that is actually we met in the gym. And I asked you you know, the feedback of, oh, look, I'm considering to get a dog, right? And you just brought your dog from Brazil.
Yeah.
So do you think for our lifestyle is compatible to get a dog? And then your feedback was the one that let us, me and you, saying, okay, let's go for it. And that's why we are Porto.
Fantastic.
So it's
fantastic. It's true.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ale.